And welcome to the 614th episode of Travel Itch. I'm Dan Schlossberg, and we are in the 14th season of Travel Itch Radio, the show that lets you enjoy the pleasures of travel from the comfort of your armchair. Every week at this time, we talk to people representing destinations, hotels, airlines, railroads, car rental companies, and others in the world of travel and hospitalities. From authors and bloggers to broadcasters and publicists, if it's got anything to do with travel, it's got everything to do with Travel Itch. Our guest today is Steve Crano, Manager of Corporate Communications for Choose Chicago. Welcome, Steve, to the new video version of Travel Itch Radio.
Thank you, Dan. It's a pleasure to be here. I feel like now I've made it in the travel trade industry, and thank you for having me on.
Well, we're glad to do it. I love Chicago. First of all, congratulations on Chicago being voted best big city in the U.S. for the 9th consecutive year in Condé Nast Traveler's Reader's Choice Awards. No other city has done that well in the 30 years of that honor, so it's really a big deal.
38 years, so even longer. Wow. So we're very proud of that streak, and very thankful for all the people who continue to come here and enjoy and think of us when they vote in the Reader's Choice Awards.
Well, I love Chicago, and I was there for 5 days during IPW in June. I got to do a lot of things, including riding the subway from downtown to Wrigley Field for a Cubs game and taking the architectural boat ride. Is it safe to say Chicago has something for everyone, no matter what the weather?
I think that it's certainly safe to say, but I would say that, Chicago is all about the people that make it so special, right? Chicagoans have tremendous civic pride, and we love to work hard and share the city that we love with everyone. So, we have incredible architecture, we have incredible museums, iconic sports teams, all of that stuff, world-class hotels. But to me, it's the people that really set us apart as a city, as a destination, as a place to live, work, and play.
Well, I stayed at the Palmer House, built in the 19th century, upgraded in the 20th, and still going strong in the 21st. During the summer months, Choose Chicago reported 55.3 million people came to the city and generated 20.6 billion in economic impact. That's amazing. Let's talk about some of the things they could see and do, starting with that architectural boat ride, which I think has to rate as the top attraction in the city, in my book anyway.
Yeah. So you want to talk about the architecture boat tours?
Yeah.
Okay. Just a quick note. I think that you had shared the number of people who stayed in hotels over the summer, but yes. I think you shared our overall economic impact figure for 2024. But as a clarification, Chicago hotels did welcome more guests during the summer of 2025 than any summer previously. So June through August filled, over, 3 million hotel rooms. And this was driving record economic impact, even compared to pre-pandemic, when 2019 was our previous best year on record. So just that clarification. Now jumping to the architecture boat tours, which I have to say is a must-do activity for anyone visiting Chicago, whether it's your first time here or your 50th time here. I can't count the number of architecture boat tours I have been on, and I learned something new, and I enjoy it just as much as the time before every time. Multiple companies offer these tours: Wendella, City Cruises, and Chicago's First Lady are a few of them. And they're all wonderful. You can take tours along the river. You can take tours along the lake shore. You can do them in the morning, afternoon, evening, and whatever one of those variations you go for, you're going to get a different experience. And you're going to see something, you're going to see Chicago from a different perspective, and you'll learn something new. So I can't recommend them enough. It's, if you like history, if you like architecture, if you just like cities, then that's an activity for you for sure.
And I love trains, and doing the loop, it was fabulous. I just loved it. And seeing all these crisscrossing tracks, it was just amazing to me. It was like being on a large toy train set.
Yeah, the elevated train tracks in Chicago, obviously it's you see elevated train tracks, you immediately think Chicago, right? It's not something you associate so much with other cities, even though like New York has some elevated tracks. But it's really cool to ride them, especially around the loop, because it's really the hub of the entire train system in Chicago. It's kind of a hub and spoke system where everything comes to the Loop. That's why the central downtown neighborhood is called the Loop, because there's literally a loop of train tracks running around the area. And so it's just really cool because, like you said, and like that picture you shared, you can actually see where the trains, like change tracks, how they intersect, and you can see trains waiting for each other all above ground. And it's also just a very cool way to see the city. I ride the train to work every day. I used to ride the Brown Line. Now I ride the Red Line. And it's beautiful. You get to take in the amazing architecture downtown and the neighborhoods and just watch the whole city pass you by. I love it. I've always loved it, even before I lived here when I was a kid and I would visit.
And you mentioned the Red Line, which I like because it's the only subway in the country that connects two ballparks. You can ride it from one end to the other, Wrigley Field to what I call Comiskey Park, Guaranteed Rate Park, I guess now. But that subway goes all the way from one to the other. I think that's fabulous.
Oh, it goes much further than that. I live further north than Wrigley, and it goes much further south than Guaranteed Rate Field.
And I think between the ballparks, it's 9.5 miles, if I'm not mistaken.
That sounds about right. I would trust you.
Okay. For a big city, it's so easy to get around, as you mentioned, either on foot or in the many trains and subways, all marked by color rather than number. As you mentioned, a much better idea than New York. It's too confusing here.
It is confusing in New York, but I'm not going to knock New York. It's a wonderful city, and they have an incredible transit system, and it's just a little different.
Well, in Chicago, you can practically reach out your window of the subway and touch the buildings, and they're so close. It's amazing.
It is. And again, that's like a really cool thing about the built environment here. It's just it's an urban city, and there's a demand for space, obviously. So they're going to build up right along the tracks sometimes.
And we got to put in a plug for the 2027 All-Star Game coming to Wrigley Field.
Yeah, really excited. The last time the All-Star Game was here, it was at the Sox Stadium down on the south side. So really happy to have it back in Chicago, and it's fun to be back at Wrigley. It's such a historic ballpark, obviously the second oldest in the country. I don't need to tell you that, but it's going to be a great game. It's going to be a great week for baseball in Chicago.
Well, I don't know how much our viewers know about the winds that come off Lake Michigan and affect baseball at Wrigley Field, but Greg Maddux, the Hall of Fame pitcher, pitched for the Cubs, said that the winds didn't bother him because when the wind blew in, it helped him, and when it blew out, it hurt him. So he figures he broke even.
Okay. I've never heard of that. I didn't know that the winds were affecting baseball at Wrigley Field. That's fun.
Oh, yeah, big time. Remember that 26-23 game? I know it was a long time ago, but that's the most runs ever scored in a single game. That was at Wrigley Field. Incredible game. Okay, baseball fans will also love Harry Caray's restaurant, even in the middle of the winter. Owned by the family of the late Cubs broadcaster, it has great steaks and even greater memorabilia. I made it a point to eat there when I was in town. I loved it.
Yeah, Harry Caray's is a cool spot. I remember also eating there when I was young and visiting the city before I lived here. And, there's the location out on Navy Pier, which is a wonderful experience. It's very family friendly, and just like a really fun restaurant. Like you said, tons of memorabilia. It's a cool place if you're a baseball fan or if you're just visiting Chicago and want to get a taste of, some Chicago history.
And we mentioned this place, so let's have a picture of it. There is an aerial view of Wrigley Field, a great ballpark, second oldest in the country. Just a couple of years after Fenway Park opened in 1912, Wrigley opened in 1914. Not called Wrigley at the time because it was a Federal League ballpark. Federal League lasted a couple of years and then dissolved, and it became a National League ballpark and named after the Wrigleys. And by the way, the Wrigleys, there are three stadiums called Wrigley Field. One is in Chicago. One is in Los Angeles, where the Los Angeles Angels started playing when they opened for business in 1961. And there's one in Catalina Island, California, where the Cubs trained. The whole island was owned by the Wrigley family.
Wow, I did not know that.
Fields. Yeah.
I did not know that. That's fascinating. And is the Catalina Island Stadium still active? Still the spring training facility?
No, it's no longer hosting spring training, but I believe it's been preserved as a historic landmark.
Okay. Wow. I'm learning so much, Dan. Thank you.
Well, this is Travel Itch with Dan Schlossberg. We're in our 14th season, live at 5 New York time every Thursday on LinkedIn, YouTube, WhatsApp, X, and Facebook, among others. And we're talking with Steve Crano of Choose Chicago. Steve, Chicago has considerable cuisine it can call its own. Chicago-style pizza and hot dogs, for example. Plus, it's the host city for the James Beard Awards, with plenty of local winners, too. Can you talk about that a bit?
Yeah, absolutely. We've been hosting the James Beard Awards since 2015. This has been their home in Chicago. It is an annual culinary awards for the best of American cuisine, right? So these are awards for restaurants, for bars, for service, for chefs all across the country. There are awards by region, and then there are overall awards. And Chicago, I think, has over 50 James Beard recognized chefs, restaurants, and other hospitality professionals. And last year, or I shouldn't say last year, this year, in the most recent edition of the awards, Chicago bar Kumiko actually won Best Bar in the country. So we're very proud of that. There was also a special award called the James Beard America's Classics Award that was given out to Lem's Barbecue, which is kind of a South Side institution. And then one of our chefs won a Best Chef of the Great Lakes region. That was Noah Sandoval of the restaurant Oriole, which I believe has one Michelin star currently.
And you have quite a few quirky places like Ed DeBevick's, that's one. And I love that place, too. And also the Billy Goat Tavern. Do you know about that?
Yeah, cheeseburger. Classic spot. I mean, that's, I know the SNL sketch. I think it was from the first season of Saturday Night Live with Jim Belushi, with Belushi.
Tom Belushi, yeah.
Yeah, and it's still around. People flock there, and I don't think it's changed much since it was depicted in that famous sketch.
Okay, the oldest planetarium and the largest science center are both in Chicago, along with a terrific aquarium, several art museums. So is it fair and accurate to call Chicago a city of museums?
I mean, Chicago is a city of so much more than museums, but we have around 60 museums. We have incredible world-class institutions like the Art Institute of Chicago, which houses one of the largest Impressionist collections in the world. I think the second largest, the largest outside of Paris. The Museum of Contemporary Art in Chicago is an amazing place for modern art. They are currently showing a exhibit by Yoko Ono. It's a retrospective exhibit of more than 70 years of her work. And it's the only museum in the United States that has this exhibit. You alluded to the Adler Planetarium on our downtown museum campus, and then the Griffin Museum of Science and Industry, which is down in the Hyde Park neighborhood or Jackson Park. And it's very near the new Obama Presidential Center, which is currently under construction in Jackson Park, which is going to be the largest presidential museum in the country when it's completed. And it will not only be a museum, it will also have event spaces. It will have these beautiful public gardens. It'll have a community gym facilities for community and youth programming, and even a branch of the Chicago Public Library. So that is a very exciting place that's still under development. So circling back to your question, sure, we're a museum city. We've got museums for just about everything, from surgical sciences to outsider art to horror to fine art.
And Chicago is a city of neighborhoods, as you just mentioned. Is it true there are 77 different ones in the Windy City?
Yeah, the 77 number, that's an easy thing to remember, right? But the 77 number actually refers to what are called community areas in Chicago that are ways that the city is formally divided up. I would say if you were to ask Chicagoans and take a poll, you'd probably find a lot more than 77 neighborhoods based on where people say they live, right? But the 77 community areas is a very commonly accepted and referred to way to talk about other parts of the city. Sure.
Well, I know you have a Chinatown and a Mexico of the Midwest, among other things, and plenty of places to dine along the Chicago River where the view is as good as the food. I know that because I ate there.
Yeah, well, since you mentioned the Riverwalk, I mean, that is one of the most beautiful pieces of urban infrastructure, I think, in the country, or maybe the world that I've seen. And it was, something that's really only come together over the last couple of decades through several mayoral administrations with a lot of federal and state support. And it has now just turned the Chicago River that was only decades ago something that no one would touch with a 10-foot pole and, very much an industrial asset to now a total recreational asset where there are people kayaking in it constantly, people taking architecture boat tours. We have hot tub boats in the Chicago River now. And you may have even seen, Dan, that we had our first river swim event in 100 years just this year. It was actually only a few weeks ago. And it was a fundraising event for a charity for medical research, but it had, I think, over 100 swimmers registered to swim 1 or 2 mile competition swims, including some Olympic athletes. So we're very proud of the Chicago River as a public asset and just love that we have the Riverwalk to showcase that asset.
And speaking of food, aren't there plenty of neighborhood street fairs that feature food from around the world and lots of upcoming holiday markets and parades?
Absolutely. There's too many street festivals to name. There's at least one for every neighborhood, I think. Some of the more notable parades around the end of your holidays. Chicago has the second largest Thanksgiving Day parade, following New York's, and it's a wonderful family-friendly event downtown. We just had our Arts in the Dark parade, which is a massive Halloween parade, also downtown. Coming up on Halloween night is the Haunted Halsted parade. And then we have a bit later in November, I believe it's November 18th this year, the Magnificent Mile Lights Festival and Parade, which is another one of the largest holiday parades in the country. And it's got Mickey and Minnie Mouse leading the parade and Santa Claus bringing up the rear, and just a wonderful way to celebrate and get people out enjoying one of the most iconic retail corridors in the country, which is the stretch of Michigan Avenue north of the Chicago River.
I'm glad you mentioned the Magnificent Mile. Exactly what is that?
Like I just said, the Magnificent Mile is a stretch of Michigan Avenue, and it is lined with so many flagship retail stores, high-end boutiques, museums. The MCA, the Museum of Contemporary Art, is off of the Mag Mile, some theaters, and so many amazing world-class hotels are also along that stretch of Michigan Avenue. So that's why we call it the Mag Miles, because of all the magnificent stuff happening along that street.
Isn't the water tower on that street too?
The water tower is, yes, it is on Mag Mile.
Okay. We know Chicago is a great walking city, especially along the beaches of Lake Michigan and the Riverwalk, which you mentioned. Please tell us a little bit more about Lake Michigan. It's a great beach too.
I gotta say, I wish more people knew that Chicago is a beach town. This is a beach destination. In the summertime, we have 20 odd miles of coastline in Chicago along Lake Michigan, which is a beautiful, very clean source of fresh water that, for all intents and purposes, it's an ocean without salt. And it is just gorgeous along the beaches. My favorite beaches, I gotta say, are up in Loyola Beach in the Rogers Park neighborhood, which is the furthest north. And then my other favorite beach is down on 63rd Street, which is in the south side, just south of Jackson Park, where the new Obama Presidential Center is being developed. And that beach has this gorgeous, massive old pavilion that's part of the Chicago Park District. And it just looks like a castle right on the beach. And it's, they have some great restaurants along our beaches, great bars. So please, 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 if you're coming to Chicago during the summertime, bring your bathing suits, bring your suntan lotion, and plan to hit the beach. That is just as good a reason to come here as any, in my opinion.
Isn't Chicago also the birthplace of improv? And tell us what Second City is all about, even though Chicago is definitely first in the mind of many visitors.
Sure. I think, we were talking about SNL already in this
Yes.
in this interview, and so many cast members from SNL, throughout the entire 50 years of the show have come through Chicago's improv scene. Chicago, I don't know if it's fair to call it the birthplace of improv, but it is certainly where improv came of age and found its footing in American entertainment culture and history. So the Second City is probably the best known of the improv theaters and companies in Chicago, or maybe in the world. And it's where people from, the first cast of SNL to the current cast of SNL have traditionally come through, trained, honed their comedy chops, learned how to, sell a bit, commit to the sketch, and always say yes. And so I've loved Second City, and I'm just a big SNL fan as well, have been since I was quite young. I've loved it since I was a teenager. Can't recommend improv comedy enough. The IO Theater is another great spot who has another, group of incredible alumni have come through there. Check out improv if you're in Chicago and you want to see some theater. It's definitely a Chicago experience.
And talking about comedy and Chicago, this picture reminds me of the old Bob Newhart show. It was always shown in the credits at the beginning of the show.
Great show, right? I love Bob Newhart. I was raised on that. And yeah, I actually live up in the Edgewater neighborhood, where the building that was the exterior shots of his building is actually up in Edgewater, not downtown like he was supposed to live in the show. But right. I got to say, while you showed one of the two twin towers of Marina City there, yes. Those are two identical buildings right along the Chicago River downtown. Bob Newhart, in the opening credits of that show, took the most ridiculous route to get to work that you could imagine. Yes, he's taken the subway, he's taken the Metra commuter train, he's walking north and south, and so it's pretty silly if you go back and look at it as someone who lives in Chicago, and you're like, where is this guy going? Where's he coming from? But yeah, great show.
And visitors to Chicago definitely need to pack cameras and bring them to the planetarium if they want to get great shots of Lake Michigan with the skyline behind it. Do people swim in the lake when it's warm enough? They do. Or they use it mainly for boating and jet skiing sometimes.
Oh, all of the above, man. People flock to our beaches. Residents, I think that's a place that residents just generally, want to meet up or just be during the summertime, is along the lakeshore at our sandy beaches. And there's a huge boating scene in Chicago, like so many marinas where people dock their boats all summer long. Jet skiing, kayaking, yachting, sailing. There's a large sailing community here. Anything that involves water sports or water-oriented recreation, Chicago's the place for it.
We'd like to hear about Millennium Park, Steve. Isn't that a short walk from downtown? In fact, tell us about some of the other green spaces in your city.
Yeah, well, Millennium Park is downtown, and it was named Millennium Park because it was, opened soon after the new millennium. I believe 2004 was when it opened. It just had its 20th anniversary recently, and it was developed by the second Mayor Daley, and it has a beautiful children's garden and playground. Maggie Daley Park is, just next to Millennium Park. It has an incredible amphitheater and lawn for watching public concerts. That is called the J. Pritzker Pavilion. Just a very recognizable piece of architecture in the city, and an incredible public asset. Chicago has so many free concerts during the spring through fall at J. Pritzker Pavilion and other park district properties. You asked about other parks. Grant Park is kind of the other other half of our downtown park, along with Millennium Park. That's where things like the Lollapalooza Festival or the NASCAR Chicago Street Race or the Sueños Latin Music Festival happen. And then other major parks in the city, Jackson Park, like I mentioned earlier, down in the Hyde Park neighborhood, absolutely gorgeous. It was designed like Grant Park by the same landscape architects who designed Central Park in New York City. Another beautiful park is Washington Park on the south side, Garfield Park and Humboldt Park on the west side. The list goes on. The parks system in Chicago generally is just one of the most incredible assets for visitors, but especially for residents. As someone who's a dog owner, I really appreciate that there's a lot of green space. As someone with a young child, I appreciate that there's a lot of green space to enjoy as a family. As a pet owner and just as an adult, I love to go to the parks and read. Just an incredible asset for the city, truly.
Steve, when I was in town, I saw a sign that said start of historic Route 66. Isn't next year the 100th anniversary of that famous highway?
Yes, we are gearing up to celebrate the centenary of Route 66. It's this iconic piece of Americana, right, that is a big draw to visitors both locally, regionally, nationally, and internationally. I think that a lot of Chicagoans don't actually appreciate just how famous Route 66 is internationally. We get a lot of folks from Europe, from Latin America, from Asia who come here to start their Route 66 road trip. It's an iconic American experience that people come here, they rent cars, they rent motorcycles, and they head west, right? It goes from Chicago out to Santa Monica Pier in California. And I think that what draws people to it is just this idea of freedom, of self-determination, of like American auto culture, maybe even, or music culture, or just people who want an itinerary that's kind of prepackaged so they can go see a lot of the country, see so many national parks along Route 66. So it is definitely an asset, and we are very much looking forward to celebrating the 100th anniversary of this iconic road with so many of our partners here in Chicago.
Choose Chicago gave the city a great slogan, never done and never outdone. When you say Chicago is a mix of old and new, history and innovation, entertainment for all ages and all price points?
I think that all of the above is fair. Yes, Dan. So Chicago, never done, never outdone. It comes from this idea of the city being a place that is constantly evolving, right? We are constantly striving to push the envelope, to be at the vanguard of arts and culture and the culinary world and architecture and urban development. And we are never outdone. That refers to our work ethic, to Chicagoans wanting to, outplay, outdo the competition, and create incredible experiences for visitors, for themselves. We love sharing the city, and we're very proud of the work that we put into this slogan and the campaign surrounding it, because it has truly been an engagement effort with stakeholder groups across the city. There's a lot of community input that went into developing this campaign, went into testing the idea of never done, never outdone. And we found that it very much resonated with Chicagoans. So we're very proud of it. It's really a celebration of our civic pride.
And speaking of prices, aren't there a lot of free things to do in Chicago as well?
Oh my gosh, you could come to Chicago and, only spend money on your hotel and your food, or maybe even not your food if you plan it right. There are free festivals happening constantly. Like I mentioned before, during the warmer months, there's constantly free entertainment in our Parks District. So many venues. Assets like the Riverwalk or the lake or our parks make it such a beautiful place to just explore, and without having to, even touch the incredible attractions that we have, which I'm not recommending anyone skips out on, because we do have incredible attractions. But we even have so many of our museums that offer regular free admission days. So you can, if you're planning a trip to Chicago, look up, when, free museum days, and you'll find them at so many of them. I very much recommend the Museum of Mexican Art in the Pilsen neighborhood. That is a historically Mexican neighborhood. It's the National Museum of Mexican Art that is always free. And around this time of year, they have a great exhibit for the Day of the Dead, with a beautiful ofrenda built. And also, if you're in Pilsen, sorry, but you got to spend some money on food, and that is a great place to do it. The Mexican food is outstanding, truly.
But getting to Chicago is easy. You can fly into O'Hare or Midway, hop on the L, and you're downtown in a flash without worrying about the traffic. That's what I always do.
Yeah, we're fortunate to have 2 international airports within the city limits that are, as you alluded to, connected to our downtown core by public transit. You do not need to get in a car if you're visiting Chicago. Many people will elect to drive around town. It often, to be honest with you, takes longer than taking the train. I myself commute on the train, but the blue line out to O'Hare and then the pink orange line out south is really an asset for visitors and residents.
Steve, your enthusiasm and knowledge is fantastic. Is there anything that I haven't asked you that you'd like to add?
One thing you didn't ask about, Dan, is our new social media campaign. It's called All for the Love of Chicago. So All for the Love of Chicago is a platform on both Instagram and TikTok that we have created. We're curating videos of residents, of celebrities, of civic leaders, of our partner organizations, of visitors who just want to express their love and enthusiasm for Chicago, right? That's why it's called, again, All for the Love of Chicago. If you go on Instagram or TikTok, take a selfie video of yourself talking about why you love Chicago, maybe a first impression or a positive experience you've had, or maybe just a lifelong love affair, and tag, hashtag All for the Love of Chicago, or at our accounts, All for the Love of Chicago. We will curate those, we will reshare them, and we're just trying to celebrate and provide an opportunity for others to celebrate all that makes this city so great, that makes it the best big city for the 9th year in a row.
Our guest today on Travelwitch has been Steve Corino, Manager of Corporate Communications for Choose Chicago. Thank you, Steve, for joining us on Travelwitch.
Thank you, Dan. It's been a pleasure.
And that's it for this edition of Travelwitch Radio. This is your host and writer, Dan Schlossberg, saying thank you for your time this time. Until next time, next week, we'll talk with Haley Mach, PR Manager for the Wyoming Office of Tourism. For now, good night and stay safe. And hopefully I'll get this to work. We'll see. All right. Yeah.
Psychedelic theme music you got there.
Thank you.